welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to another video and welcome back to another series check-in video. I try to do these videos in April and October every year, but I kind of missed the April deadline for this round. I have been so busy, but I did want to make sure that I sat down and did this. This is like my kick in the butt to get myself back on track, remind myself that I need to be reading sequels and finishing up series. I'm trying to do better about starting series, but it's just the name of the game at this point, and I have accepted that I am a series starter and not as much of a series finisher, but I will say this is my best round yet when it comes to finishing up series. So like I said, I'm going to start with all those categories. I'm going to start with all the series that I finished, then we'll talk about the series that I have caught up with, the series that I have DNF'd, then we'll talk about the series I've continued with, and then lastly, the series that I haven't touched in the last 6 months. So let's go ahead and get to it. All right, let's start with the series that I have finished. I am so happy to say that I finished 19 series in the last 6 or 7 months, and that equals to 37 books read in order to complete all of those series. The first series that I finally completed is Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan. I have been working on this series since April of 2020, so the fact that I finally finished this one brings me so much joy, and I loved it upon a reread. Up next, we have The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. I read the last and final book in order to complete the series, and I loved it. Then we have the Wicked Villain series by Katie Robert. I had to read like 5 or 6 books in the series in order to complete it. I did this in a 24-hour readathon. If you'd like to see it, I will link it in the cards above if you're interested, but I did really enjoy this series, and I'm so glad that I finally finished it. Another one that's been on my list for quite a while is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nyong, and this one is one that I really liked as well. Wasn't my favorite, but I'm glad that I finally finished up the series. Again, another one on my list for a very long time, and that is the Vale Hall series by Kristen Simmons. I finally read the last and final book in this series in order to finish it up. One that I started and completed during this time is Holiday Masked Men. This is by Molly Doyle. They're like 2 short little novellas. Technically there is a full-length novel in this series that you can read, but I have chosen not to read it, so I'm counting as completed instead of DNF'd. Then we have, of course, It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. The sequel did come out this year, and I did end up reading that one, and again, really enjoyed it, so this is a weird one to call a series, but technically it is a series. Up next, we have the Kiss Quotient series by Helen Huang. I finally read the second book in the series. I had read the first book first, then I jumped to the third book, and I needed to read The Bride Test. I did finish that one up. I didn't love it as much as the rest of the books in the series, but it is completed. Brutal Prince was the series that I was working on for a while. I finally read the last 2 books, or the last book in the series. I can't really remember if I read 2 or 1 to complete this, but it is done. And I'm very excited, so hopefully I can move on with the rest of the books that are in this world. I'm very excited to read more of Sophie's backlist, so we'll see. Hopefully I'll get to it soon. One of my favorite series that I have finished, and that is the Hoops series by Kennedy Ryan. These are interconnected standalones, but they are so, so good. You guys have heard me rave about this series so much, so I'm not going to beat the dead horse, but highly recommend this series, and I'm so glad, but also very sad that it's over. Then we have the Twisted series by Anna Huang. I did read the last 2 books in the series in order to complete up these books, and I, again, love them so much. I actually think I might have read 3 books in order to complete this, but besides the point, I read it. I loved all the books. This one isn't my favorite, but the other 3 books are definitely 5 stars, so good, had so much fun with them, and I highly recommend the series. Another series that makes me so proud that I finished it, and that is the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. 3 chunky adult fantasies, all read at the very beginning of the year, and I'm so happy to say that I finished the series. I loved it. It was very surprising that I enjoyed it as much as I did, but I highly recommend it if you're looking for a very politically driven adult fantasy. I'm so proud of myself. To finish the Kit Davenport series, it was a pretty easy one. All I had to do was read the little short novella at the end of the series. I did read it. It wasn't my favorite book in this series by any means, but I did finish up the series. You guys know I love Tate James, so by saying it's not my favorite, I still gave it a 4.5 stars, but I'm glad that I'm finally done with the series, and I'm excited to do a reread at some point soon. Another one that's been on my list for so long, and I'm so glad I finally finished it, and that is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. Technically, I did read the 4 core books in this series, but last year, Elle Kennedy came out with a collection of 4 short stories that were in a bind-up called The Legacy, and I finally read that one this year and really enjoyed it. So happy to be done with the series, but again, it will be a reread sometime very soon. Then we have the Harlequin Crew series by Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti. This is another one that makes me very, very proud because I have started 3 or 4 or 5 at this point, I don't even know, Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti series, and this is the first one that I finally finished. I had to read the last 2 books in the series to finish it, and I did it, and I'm so happy. Then we have The Sinner's Duet by Sophie Lark. I did start and finish the series during this collection of months, and I really enjoyed it. Another Sophie Lark to add to my collection. And then again, I started and finished the Nightwalker series by Jacqueline Frank. I read all 6 books in the series. Technically, the last one was a DNF, but because I made it through 5 books in the series, I'm counting it as completely finished. I did try to read the last book, and it just wasn't for me, so I DNF'd it, but 5 books. I did it for a read-along that I did with a few friends of mine, and I had a great time, but I'm so glad that it's over. And make it to end this section off with a bang, because the last book that I'm going to talk about, the last series that I finished so far, is my favorite series, my favorite book in the romance category, I think, of all time, and that is the Grip series by Kennedy Ryan. I did start and finish this series in the last couple of months, and this series holds a special place in my heart. These characters are the light of my life, and all 3 books in this series follow the same 2 characters as they fight for the love that they deserve, and I love it so much. I'm very sad that this is over, but I'm also very glad that I finally finished up the last and final book in the series. Alright, very quickly, let's talk about the series that I am caught up with, meaning that there are more books coming out in this series, but they are not published yet. So I'm going to quickly go through these, not a lot to talk about them, but we have the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. I have read the first 2 books that are currently out, Things We Never Got Over and Things We Hide from the Light. Love them both. Excited for book 3. Then we have the Skyland series by Kennedy Ryan. The first book recently came out. There is a second book on the way. I believe these are interconnected standalones, but still one that I'm very excited to read. The Romance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams. I did read book 4 and 5 in order to catch up with the series. There is a book coming out that is written in these books. It's one of the books that was included in the very first book, and I believe there are still more books to come in this series about the guys and their relationship woes. And finally, we have the Hollow Star Saga by Ashley Shuttleworth. I did read book 2 in order to catch up with the series. I'm excited for book 3. I don't know if it's the last and final book in the series, but I am excited to read what comes next. So that puts me at 4 series that I've caught up with and 4 books that I read in order to get there. All right, let's bring this section to a close with series that I have DNF'd. This is going to be the last section where things are fully complete up until things are being published. So this is going to be all the series that I DNF'd. The first series that I DNF'd is the Kane series by Shanora Williams. I did DNF the first book in this series. I think it was Wanting Mr. Kane. I didn't like it. It wasn't fun for me. I DNF'd it, and therefore I will not be moving on with the series. Up next, we have the Primus of Power series. The first one is a lot like, maybe, I don't know, I can't remember, a lot like Adios and You Had Me at Ola or something like that. I read those 2 books. I didn't really like either one of them, and I did read them to their completion, but I just will not be continuing on with the series or really anything else that this author writes. I just have figured out that she's not for me. Up next, we have Moose Springs. I can't remember the author of this one, but everything will be on the screen. I liked this book. It was fine. I read it during Christmas time. It is a Christmas romance, but I don't see the need to go back and read more books in this series. I was good with what I read, and I'm just gonna move on. Then we have Pandora's Box, and I could be wrong about this one, but I think this is Vibe, maybe, and I started reading this as an ebook and I didn't like it, so I DNF'd it. If I'm wrong, I'll put the picture up on the screen. Either way, it's DNF'd. Then we have American Royalty by Tracy Livesay. I read this one for Black History Month, and I didn't love it, and therefore I don't see myself continuing on with this series. I might pick up more books by this author in the future, just not in this series. The next book is This Poison Heart by Kaylin Bayron. I did read this book, and I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it by any means. This is now the second book by this author that I have read and not really enjoyed to the utmost degree, so I have decided this author is not going to be for me, and I will not be continuing on with the series, even though it did leave off on quite a cliffhanger. Then we have The Last Binding series. This is by Freya Marsky. I did try to read the first book. I didn't really enjoy it. I couldn't get into it. The historical situation was just too much for me, so I DNF'd the first book. I did have both books on my shelves, and unfortunately, I'm not going to get to them, but it is what it is. Another DNF to add to the list. Then I decided to DNF the Me Before You series. I read the first book like 2.5 years ago, and I just don't see myself ever getting back to the series, so as I was going through my list, I decided to DNF it. Same goes with the next two, Shatter Me and Boyfriend Material by, what's his name? Alexis Hall, and Shatter Me by Tahar Mafi. Both of these, I don't see myself going back and reading more books in the series, so I decided to DNF them. And the last one that I'm going to talk about is a recent DNF, and that is Emperor of Night by Molly E. Lee. I did try to read it. I got about 50% of the way through and realized I had no connection to the characters or the story, so I decided to DNF it. It is a book in a series. I believe it is a trilogy, and I just don't see myself moving on, so DNF. Alright, so that is a total of 11 series that I DNF'd this year. So that puts me at 34 series completed in the last 7 months. 34. I think that that is a freaking hoot. I'm so proud of myself. It feels very accomplishing to be able to get through that many, but I've also started quite a few. So let's talk about it. All right, the first series we're going to talk about is Tattered and Torn by Catherine Cowles. I picked this one up for a video idea and I ended up really enjoying this one. So I definitely will continue on with the series at some point. It's not high on my priority list, but I do want to continue. Then we have The Wright Brothers by Christina C. Jones. I read the first book as a gift from a friend and I really enjoyed it. We'll definitely continue on with the series, but again, not high on my priority list, although I am trying to prioritize reading more indie, self-published Black romance authors, so eventually I'll get around to this one and hopefully I enjoy the rest of the series. Then we have the Bellinger series by Tessa Bailey. I read Hook, Line, and Sinker. I have to go back and read It Happened One Summer. It is one that everyone rants and raves about. I will say it's not my favorite book that I have read. I didn't really love Hook, Line, and Sinker, but so many people love It Happened One Summer that I'm willing to give it a try, and if I don't like it, then I think that I'm going to just steer clear of Tessa Bailey's books. I do own 2 more books of hers on my shelves, which I will read eventually, but if I don't end up loving that one, I'm just going to be stepping back from her as an author. Then we have Bright Falls. This is by Ashley Herring Blake. Wow, that slipped my mind for a second. I read Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I still need to read the second book, and a third book in the series is coming out relatively soon, so I would like to be able to catch up and keep up with this series. If there is going to be any more in the series, I don't know, but I would like to finish it sometime soon. I did absolutely love Delilah Green, so here's to praying that I can get around to that one ASAP. The next one, I don't know when I'm going to get around to finishing the series, but I started it, so that's something. And that is the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, the first one being The Final Empire. I still need to read the other 2 books in the series, but they're chunky. I'm a little afraid, I'm not gonna lie, but I'll get to it at some point. Then we have the Never After series by Emily McIntyre. I did read the first book. There are 4 or 5 books out in this series so far. I own book 2, haven't gotten around to it yet. I will at some point. Then we have the Magnolia Parks universe by Jessa Hastings. I did read book 1, Magnolia Parks. I still need to get around to the rest of the books in the series. I do own book 2, but again, haven't had a huge desire to pick it up because I was emotionally damaged by book 1, but also I have to read these ones physically, and that just takes a lot more time. I also really annotated this book, which also takes more time, so I need the right time to pick up the next one, but I will definitely read the rest of the series. Then we have This Woven Kingdom by Tahara Mafi. The first book I really enjoyed. I was very surprised by, and I definitely need to read book 2. It's been on my list of things to get to like ASAP, but just haven't gotten around to it yet. But hopefully I can get around to it soon. I don't know if this is a duology or a trilogy, but I'm very excited to jump back into this world. Then we have The Salacious Players Club by Sarah Kate. I did read books 1 and 2 in this series, and I need like ASAP to read the rest of the books. They are so hot, they are so sexy, they are so good. Highly recommend this series, and I cannot wait to jump back in. Then we have the Heart Song duology by Jennifer Hartman. I still need to read the second book in the series, but I'm a little afraid. Jennifer Hartman really knows how to break some hearts, and I don't think that this duology is going to be an exception. I've heard mixed reviews about book 2 though, so I'm a little hesitant to pick it up, but I will definitely pick it up soon. Up next, we have Monsters and Muses by Sav R. Miller. I did read the novella that comes before the first book in the series, which is Promises and Pomegranates. I haven't read any of the full-length novels by her just yet, but I do want to continue on with the series before I forget all of the details of the little novella. Then we have the Part of Your World series by Abby Jimenez. These are interconnected standalones, but I loved book 1 so much that I definitely want to read the next book in the series. That one is what is it called? Yours Truly. Definitely one that I'm very excited to read. I don't read a lot of traditional publishing romance very much anymore, but this one definitely hit. Then we have The Edens by Daphne Perry. I did read the novella, Christmas and Quincy, as well as Indigo Ridge. I still need to read the rest of the books in the series, and I'm very excited to move on. These are romantic suspense books that I had so much fun with, so very excited for this series. Another very popular one, I read Flawless, the first book in the Chestnut Spring series. I will be reading the next book relatively soon, in the next few days, and then I'll only have Powerless to read before the next book in the series comes out, but definitely one that I loved quite a bit, and I'm very excited to move on with the series. Then we have Wild by K.A. Tucker. I read the first book, The Simple Wild. I really enjoyed it. Definitely need to move on with the series, but the first book was a little sad, so I'm giving myself a little bit of a break, but I will be jumping back into that series relatively soon. Keeping the popular books going, I read the first book in the Kings of Sin series by Anna Huang, King of Wrath. I really enjoyed this one. I'm very excited to move on with the rest of the series. King of Pride just recently came out, and the next one is in the works. I'm very pumped for it. These next 2 books are books that I'm currently in the middle of, but they are starts to new series. So by the time this video probably makes it to you, I will be done with these ones, and they will be on my list. So the first one is Fisherman series by Julie Ann, the first one being The Naked Fisherman. This is a duology, and they're quite short, so they shouldn't take me too long, but I will need to finish the series once I finally get around to finishing this book. And the last book to talk about in this section is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, the first book in this trilogy, I'm pretty sure. The third book is coming out relatively soon, and I am enjoying it. I'm not really sure how I feel about it just yet, but I do want to continue since I did buy special editions of the second book. So hopefully I love it enough and get around to book 2. So I started a total of 18 series and I read 20 books in order to get there. So seeing as I finished 19 series but then started 18, I'm just balancing myself out here. The last section that we have to talk about that is forward progress is the series that I have continued, and then finally we'll talk about all the books I didn't even touch in the last 7 months. So let's talk about the series that I continued this round. The first one I want to talk about is the Harris Brothers series. I went back and read book 1 because previously I had read books 4 and 5 in this series without knowing it was a series, and then I decided I wanted to go back and read the other 3 books. So I did read book 1. I loved it. I really enjoyed Amy Dawes' writing, and I'm very excited to get to books 2 and 3 so I can go back and reread books 4 and 5. Then we have the Wayward Children series by Shauna McGuire. I did read Across the Green Grass Fields. I believe this is the 6th book, and a 7th book just came out, an 8th book on the way. So I am working my way through it. I technically only need to read 1 more book to be caught up, but an 8th book is coming out soon, so it'll be back on the list at some point. Then we have A Touch of Taboo by Katie Roberts. I DNF'd book 1, but because they're short little novellas, I went back and read book 2, which was Gifting Me to Your Best Friend. It was a Christmas novella, and I enjoyed it enough to want to continue on with the series. So yeah, I read that, and will be reading the novellas at some point whenever I get the urge to pick up a short little book. Then we have The Black Dagger Brotherhood by J.R. Ward. I think I'm up to book 10 at this point. There are 23 or 24 books in this series, so it'll be a while, but I'm almost halfway there, so I'll take it. Then we have The Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I always struggle with their names. I did read Gemina. I still need to read Obsidio as well as the little short story in order to finish up the series, but I loved this book so much, and I'm very scared to get around to the last and final book in the series, but I will read it soon. I think actually maybe 2 months from now, I'll be finishing up the series. Then we have the Vampire Academy series by Rochelle Mead. I did read book 2, Frostbite. I don't own that book anymore. I'm slowly taking these off of my shelves, but I do need to read Shadowkissed and then continue on with the rest of the series, but we're getting there. Up next, I continued with the Ravenhood series by Kate Stewart by reading Exodus. I still need to read the last and final book in the series, Finish Line, and I'm reading that one next month, so I should be done with this one relatively soon. Second to last, we have the Four Horsemen series by Laura Thalassa. I read Famine. I still need to read Death, which is also on my TBR for next month, so again, another one that should be done pretty quickly. And the last one that we're going to talk about is the Tea Dragon series by Kay O'Neill. I did read books 1 and now book 2. I just have book 3 left, and I will be done with the series. They are short little graphic novels, but I tend not to gravitate towards graphic novels as much as I do the rest of the books on my shelves, so it'll probably take me a while to get around to it even though it's so short, but it's on my list. So I continued with 9 series and I read 10 books in order to get there. And finally, we're going to rapid fire talk about all of the books I haven't touched in the last 7 months and still need to finish at some point. So we have the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. I still need to read the short story as well as the new book in the series. The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I did read the core novels in this book, but I still need to go back and read the graphic novels as well as Stars Above. Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I need to read Midnight Sun. The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. The last and final book in the series finally came out, and I just need to read that one and I'll be done. The Once Upon a Con series by Ashley Poston. The Farseer Trilogy by Robin Hall. The Modern Love series by Alicia Rai. Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I'm so close. I just need the last 3 books and I'll be done. The Thalanian Dynasty series by Katie Roberts. What If It's Us by Becky Abertali and Adam Silvera. The Nevernight Chronicles by Jay Kristoff. I just need to read the last book. A Forgery of Magic series by Maya Motain. Again, 1 book and I'll be done. Same goes for the Arc of the Scythe series by Neil Shusterman. I just need to read the last book. Paper Girls, the graphic novel by Brian K. Vaughan. The Legacies of Orisha series by Tomi Adeyemi. Originally, I was going to DNF this series because there was no information on a 3rd book, but a 3rd book has just been announced, so I definitely will continue on with that series. Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. The Villain series by V.E. Schwab. I just have one more book. Lumberjanes by Bryan Stevenson. The With Me in Seattle series by Kristen Proby. Shades of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I have one full-length novel and one graphic novel. The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Legendborn by Tracy Dion. The Bargainer by Laura Thalassa. The David Boss series by S.A. Sharkbori. Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. The Fallaway series by Penelope Douglas. The Imperium series by Claire Legrand. Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. Cassidy Blake by V.E. Schwab. The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. I only have one more book left. An Ember in the Ashes by Sava Tahir. I really need to finish this one. It's been on my TBR for far too long. The Briar U series by Elle Kennedy. I only have one book left. Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Again, only one more book. The Dark Side by Christy Cunning. Again, one more book. Supernatural Investigations by B.B. Alston. Capricorn Cove by Evie Mitchell. Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Bingo Love by T. Franklin and Jen St. Ange, I think. The Marionettes by Katie Wismer. I have one more book that's published and one more book that is coming out very soon. Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Middle Game by Shauna Maguire. I just need to read Seasonal Fears, but I'm terrified. The Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. Shadow Beast Shifters by Javen Eve. Wilder Lore by Amanda Foody. Tempting Monsters by Catherine Moon. There is one more book out, but I believe one more book is coming, so I should probably get to that one quickly. The Diviners by Libba Bray. Zodiac Academy by Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti. If this series never ends, I'm never going to finish it. The Roots of Chaos series by Samantha Shannon. I just need to read the prequel. Rainbow Cove by Annabeth Albert. Orange Collection 2 by Ichika Takano. The Boyfriend Project by Farrah Roshan. Wings of Ebony by J.L. Fortuna Sworn by KJ Sutton. Beartown by Frederick Bachman. Ruthless Boys of Zodiac by Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti. I am not going to finish this one until they publish the last audiobook, so I might be waiting a while. Him by Elle Kennedy and Serena Bowen. Tales from Verania by T.J. Klune. Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. I just need to read the third volume. Vicious Lost Boys by Nikki St. Croix. Priest by Sierra Simone. Plated Prisoner by Raven Kennedy. Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. The Dark Dream Duet by Gianna Darling. I read the novella. I just need to read the full-length novel. Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. Again, I read the novella. I need to read the full-length novel. Hot Jocks by Kendall Ryan. Wait With Me by Amy Dawes. Sweet Omegaverse by Catherine Moon. Hades Hangman by Tilly Cole. And the Bonds That Tie series by Jay Bree. So, are you ready for the whopping number of series I still need to finish? I still need to finish 101 series. It hurts. It hurts my soul. And in order to finish those 101 series, I would have to read 283 books. I barely read 283 books in a year. Granted, that's a lot of books to read in a year, but I would have to focus on completing every series and never start a new one in order to ever catch up. So I think I'm just gonna die with 100 series on my list. It's fine. Alright, let me know down below if you read any of the books I mentioned in today's video and what you thought of them. Also, feel free to let me know if you have any series on your list that you're working on or really excited to get to if you have too many to name. Believe me, I get it. Also, let me know if you're one of those strange unicorn people that are able to keep their series number to a minimum and just binge series whenever they start one, because I envy you. But that is the end of this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. And of course, leave any comments, questions, suggestions in the comment section below. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
Baby, turn it down like it's sweet and ready. Boys, keep it nice and steady. Know that you